Elizabeth Bowen's novel The Death of the Heart was published in 1938. In the opening of The Death of the Heart, Anna and her good friend St. Quentin walk through the park in the winter, while Anna relates the story of how 16-year-old Portia has come to live with her and her husband, Portia's older half brother, Thomas. Anna is especially vexed because she has found Portia's diary and read some of it, and it is not complimentary to Anna. The arrangement made by Portia's father, Mr. Quinn, that Anna and Thomas should take care of Portia is not going well. Portia's background is then revealed. She is the love child of Mr. Quinn and his former mistress Irene. When Mr. Quinn told his first wife about Irene and the child, she insisted that he marry Irene. He did so and they moved to southern France where Portia was born. Anna and Thomas take Portia out to watch a Marx Brothers film. Portia does not find it very amusing but is grateful for the evening out with them. As they wait for a taxi home, they run into Major Brett, a friend of Anna's former lover, Robert Pidgeon. Portia and her classmate Lillian walk to school together, as they usually do. At the school, Portia secretly reads a letter given to her by Eddie, a friend of Anna's. The school head disciplines her when she is caught reading the letter. Portia obviously feels out of place at this school and worries about making mistakes. Lillian shows Portia the letters she still gets from the cello teacher, Miss Herbner, with whom she fell in love the previous year. Anna has convinced Thomas to give Eddie a job because she feels that it will help to settle him. But she has to tell Eddie to stop sending her flowers and coming by the house, especially now that he is working for Thomas's firm. The servant Matchett goes up to Portia's room after she is turned off the lights to talk with her and say goodnight. She tells Portia about the day Portia was born and that Mrs. Quinn meant to do right as opposed to doing good when she kicked Mr. Quinn out of the house and made him marry Irene. Matchett finds Eddie's letter under Portia's pillow and warns Portia that Eddie is usually up to no good. Major Brett is lonely, so he decides to drop by Thomas and Anna's. They are not the type to encourage drop-ins, so Thomas is quite taken aback when he sees Brett in his friend hall, but invites him anyway. Portia and Eddie come home after a trip to the zoo together. They have started seeing each other but are trying to keep this a secret. Thomas notices their demeanor but says nothing. Portia and Eddie go to have tea after running into Major Brett and Thomas at the Winster Terrace house. Eddie stresses to Portia that no one should know of her relationship with him. She gives her diary to Eddie at tea. He makes her promise never to write anything about them in her diary because he knows that Anna reads the diary. In her diary, Portia writes mostly of her school and of the various things that happen around the household. She leaves out few visits with Eddie but includes the time she goes over to his flat and shares dinner with him. Matchett acts coolly toward Portia, probably because of her relationship with Eddie. Thomas asks Portia a few probing questions about Eddie, but she doesn't say much. Thomas and Anna are leaving soon for a vacation in Capri, but they wait a while before telling Portia about it because they don't want her with them and haven't figured out what to do with her. Eventually, Portia hears from Matchett that she will be staying at the seashore with Anna's former nanny, Mrs. Hecombe, while Thomas and Anna are in Capri and the staff spring cleans the house. Portia arrives in Ciel-on-Sea where she will stay with Mrs. Hecombe while Thomas and Anna are in Capri. Mrs. Hecombe's seaside house is called Waikiki and the household is comprised of her stepson Dicky, stepdaughter Daphne and their many friends. Portia receives three letters her second day at Seal on Sea, one of which is from Eddie, who says he misses her and muses about coming to see her at the Heckholm's house. Portia goes shopping with Mrs. Heckholm and enjoys herself immensely. She investigates which room in the house might be suitable for Eddie if he comes to visit. She writes him to say she has found a good room and will ask about his visit in the next day or so. On Saturday night, the family holds one of its frequent parties. Portia dances with a number of men, something new for her. Portia becomes aware of how stifling London and her half brother's home are. Waikiki seems to be filled with spontaneous living. She asks Daphne while a group is out walking if she may invite Eddie to sail on sea for the weekend. The group is immediately impressed that she has a boyfriend, and Daphne agrees to ask her mother about the arrangements. Mrs. Heckholm agrees and begins to fix up a room for Eddie. Eddie's letter to Portia tells her that he is unsure about when he can make it to sail on sea and that he will not be sure until the last moment. On Friday morning, Portia receives a letter from Eddie saying that he will be there on Saturday. When he arrives, Mrs. Heckholm has tea ready. She is obviously a bit disappointed in Eddie's countenance, but he is polite and charming. He and Portia take a walk, and he reports that she should be frightened of him because of his bad behavior. Later that evening, Portia and Eddie accompany Daphne and Dicky and their dates to the movies, where when Dicky ignites her cigarette lighter, they can all see that Eddie and Daphne are holding hands. The next day, Portia asks Eddie about the night before when he was holding Daphne's hand. He responds that it didn't mean anything. They have an argument, but Portia tries to make up with him, apologizing for being a disappointment. Later, Portia talks with Daphne about Eddie's behavior at the movies. Daphne is intent on warning her about just what kind of person Eddie is, but Portia does not want to hear this. Later, Portia and Eddie take a walk in the woods. They have a conversation about how they feel about each other. He says he has been accused of being a vicious person, and she immediately begs him not to feel that way. She begins frantically to kiss him, and he warns her about himself that he will drown her. They take a bus to the pavilion for tea, where they meet Daphne and Dicky and all of the friends Portia has made while at sail on sea. Eventually, Eddie gets very drunk and must figure out a way to get back to Waikiki to get his luggage and then find his way back to the train station. Dicky becomes angered by Eddie's behavior and gathers everyone up to leave. Eddie follows Portia out onto the balcony where he begins to sob uncontrollably. In her diary, Portia relates that Waikiki is tense after Eddie's departure. She asks Dicky what he thinks of Eddie, and he replies that he is something of a Lothario. Portia returns from Seal on Sea to London. Matchett comments on Portia's color that she seems to be speaking up more than before she went away. Portia is frantic when Matchett tells her that Eddie called the day before. The next afternoon, Anna and Thomas return from Capri. Anna thinks about the cache of letters she still keeps from when she and Robert Pidgeon were lovers. Also, she thinks about how Portia makes her feel like a tap that won't turn on. A week later, Portia comes home to find Eddie and Anna having tea. They invite her to join them and bring up the subject of her time spent at Seal on Sea. But she spends the tea daydreaming and remembering when she ran into St. Quentin Miller on the street a few days prior. Miller let drop that Anna has been reading Portia's diary, news that stunned Portia. Ever since then, she has not been able to confront anyone with candor. Eddie calls Anna to say that Portia has told him that Anna has read her diary. Anna is furious, primarily because she is entertaining Major Brett and a couple she thinks might be able to help him find a job. After the couple leaves, she confides in Major Brett her concern about Eddie and his becoming close to Portia, asking Major Brett if he thinks Portia is happy. He says yes, but suggests that Anna might have a word with Portia about Eddie and tell Eddie to leave Portia alone. Later that same afternoon, Eddie and Portia meet at Covent Garden. Portia is upset that Anna knows about her diary and is convinced that Eddie is the one who told Anna about it. Eddie says he did not. He is upset because Portia admits that the diary does contain some writing about their relationship and Anna has probably read about them. After Eddie tells Portia that she has changed and that he is no longer happy being with her, she flees his apartment and ends up with Karachi Hotel where Major Brett is staying. She tells him that she is never returning to Anna and Thomas's household. She asks Major Brett if she can marry him, stressing that she could cook and clean for him and that they would not have to live in a hotel. He says he is flattered but convinces Portia to let him call the Quains to arrange for her to return to them. Back at the house, Anna, Thomas, and Sen Quinton Miller are having dinner, aware that Portia is late. Anna takes a call in the middle of dinner from Major Brett, who tells her that Portia is with him but does not wish to come home. The three adults continue to sit around the table arguing about Portia until St. Quintin admits telling Portia and Anna reading her diary, and Anna admits reading the diary as well as discussing it with Eddie. They must decide what is the best way to pick Portia and eventually hit upon the idea of having Matchett fetch her from Major Brett's hotel. Matchett leaves in a taxi, and the book ends with her entering the hotel Karachi to bring Portia back home to the Quains.